Yo guys, it's DDP. Today I'm going to be bringing you another guide. I'm going to be taking a look at Outlaw Rogue for the patch 10.2 in Season 3. Rogue in general got a talent overhaul, and with that it also got gameplay changes in the new patch. We're going to be going over things like talents, gearing, stats, consumables, embellishments, and your rotations. Alright, let's jump into it. Now we're first off going to go over the general tree for the rogues. Now I always advise you reading every single talent point that's on these, just so you understand what they do, as you might come into problems later with not understanding how a certain spell is working a certain way, or why you're getting a certain effect. So most of the tree you can pick whatever you want, generally the top side. However, there are talents like Shadowrunner, Subterfuge, and the rest of the right tree that you're going to want always. But I'll be going over that when we go into the spec side of the tree. So before we take a look at the actual spec side of the tree, we're just going to go over what Outlaw's about. And the main thing it centralizes around is Roll the Bones. Now this will give you one of 6 buffs that I'm going to put up on the screen now. Each one will do something different and gain you a different effect. The main 3 that we're going to be wanting to look at getting is True Bearing, Ruthless Precision, and Grand Melee. Now as we get into the guide a little bit further, you'll understand why these 3 are so good. But yeah, let's jump into the spec side of the tree for Outlaw. Now the first build we're going to be looking at is the Hidden Opportunity build. It centers around using ambushes. So there's quite a few new talents that we've picked up with the new rework. These would be talents like Unhanded Upper Hand, Ace Up Your Sleeve, and Crack Shot. Now these all sort of work in conjunction with one another, and they gain benefits off each other. So this is currently our highest simming single target build in the raid. There is a flex point we can currently do with the general tree. We can take a point out of lethality and drop it in acrobatic strikes, just if you think you need the extra 3 yards on some bosses. And I also know currently people don't have a lot of haste, they're having energy problems, so you can take the point out of lethality and just drop it in Thistle Tea for the time being, just to help your energy regen. Now how this build works is you'll be wanting to try to stay in stealth as much as possible. You'll do so by using the talent Subterfuge and Shadow Dance. Subterfuge will gain when you come out of stealth, so this will be on the opener, and then every vanisher will also gain you a Subterfuge window. And then you have Shadow Dance. Now in these windows you'll be trying to use as many between the eyes as possible, and you'll do so with the talent Crack Shot, which allows us to have no cooldown on between the eyes, and it also gains us as dispatch when using it. There's also another talent that plays into this, which is Ace Up Our Sleeve, which I mentioned before, so every time you'll be spending your between the eyes, you have a chance to grant 5 extra combo points, which can lead into you with good RNG, just spamming between the eyes as much as possible. Now you do have to be careful of this, as when the Subterfuge window or the Shadow Dance window ends, if you do press between the eyes after that, it will obviously go on cooldown. And there are times where you'll be wanting to back-to-back use your Vanish windows and then your Shadow Dance straight after. So if you mess up your Vanish windows, you put between the eyes on cooldown, you want to be using Shadow Dance next, you'll no longer have between the eyes to use, which means you'll be waiting extra time for your between the eyes to come back off cooldown again. Now the other things I wanted to mention with these talents are things like Loaded Dice, which gains us an extra Roll the Bones buff, so as long as you're pressing Adrenaline Rush and then Roll the Bones, you'll be getting 2 extra. And then we're also running talents like Ghostly Strike. You'll be wanting to mainly use this in your Subterfuge, Shadow Dance windows, etc. We spec into Blade Rush. Now this isn't so much for the damage, it's more for the energy regen. So if you feel like you're starving on energy, you can press this, or you feel like you're going to be needing the energy going into a Subterfuge window, you can also press this beforehand. Now the last thing is Count the Odds, which makes that Ambush, Sinister Strike and Dispatch have a chance to grant you an extra Roll the Bones enhancement, but this will only be for 5 seconds. But however, it is doubled in Stealth. Last thing I would go over is Restless Blaze, which makes our finisher moves reduce the cooldown of the majority of our rogue abilities per combo point spent. So if you're wondering why things are coming back off CD so quickly, like your Vanish, your Between the Eyes, your Adrenaline Rush, this is why. Now the second build we're going to get into is Keep It Rolling build. This build will play pretty similar to the other one, however there are a couple of differences. The main one on the general side of the tree is we no longer take the left side, instead we take things like Echoing Remnant and Resounding Clarity. On the right side, instead of taking Improved Ambush, we take Tight Spender. And on the right side hand of the tree, the Spec tree, we will no longer be taking things like Audacity and Hidden Opportunity, and instead we'll be going down the middle of the tree, taking Summarily Dispatched, and obviously Keep It Rolling itself. Now the big difference with this is you'll no longer be pressing Ambush in your Subterfuge windows and Shadow Dance windows. You'll instead be using Sinister Strike, and you'll be using your Fan the Hammer stacks, which is your pistol shot, in order to gain combo points. Now also generally play a lot slower, but we take Echoing Remnant to help with this. What this side of the tree will do is every time we'll use this ability, we'll be getting a buff that basically tells us to use a finisher on 3, 4, and 5 combo points. And when we do this, it'll be consumed, the buff, and it'll count as if we've used 7 combo points on that spender. So it's basically just a small mini game. Obviously on the right side, the big difference is keep it rolling. This will increase the remaining duration of all of our active Roll the Bone combat enhancements for 30 extra seconds. So what you'll be wanting to do with this is get 2 Roll the Bone enhancements that you want. And also you can use Count the Odds to gain extra enhancements during this time. Maybe you get 3, 4, 5 extra buffs going at the same time, and then you'll use Keep It Rolling and you'll extend all these buffs by an extra 30 seconds. So if you get fairly lucky, you can roll things like 5 buffs and then keep it rolling and then extend them all, and then you'll have a 5 buff for an extra 30 seconds. So for the M Plus and or AoE side of things, this will be the Hidden Opportunity build for AoE, and this will be the Keep It Rolling AoE build. Now these builds will play similar to their single target counterparts, apart from now we're needing to remove a couple of talents for our Blade Rush talents. The 3 talents we're now taking are Deft Maneuvers, Dancing Steel, and Precise Cuts. Deft Maneuvers makes our Blade Flurry initial damage increase by 100%, and it'll also generate 1 combo point per target struck. Dancing Steel makes Blade Flurry strike 3 additional enemies, and its duration is increased by 3 seconds. And then Precise Cuts makes our Blade Flurry damage increase by a 2% per missing target below its maximum. Now how Blade Flurry works is it's a buff where we'll apply it and it'll deal 50% of the damage we're dealing to our single target, and it'll deal that damage to 7 additional targets. This unfortunately means that we are capped at 8 targets total, which does hinder us a little bit when you're pulling like say 15, 20 mobs in a pull. So now we're going to be going over the gearing side of things. Let's take a look at trinkets first. We have a couple good options for us for trinkets, like Cataclysmic Signet Brand from Smolderon. This comes from the new raid also. This is basically just going to put a dot on your target with a side effect that will deal some damage to you. Second trinket is going to be Coiled Serpent Idol, another trinket that will be coming from the raid. This is going to make our crits have a chance to summon a serpent to aid us and deal damage. It's a decent trinket for us, and as we're critting a lot, it'll give us a higher chance of proccing the effect. The last strong trinket I'm going to be showing you is Midas Talisman, which is from the dungeon of Taldazar. This is an unused trinket that's going to grant us our next 5 auto attacks to deal extra physical damage to the target. Now we're going to be going over weapons. First up, we have a new weapon from the raid we're going to want. It's called Thorncaller's Claws. This is going to give our melee abilities a chance to inflict nature damage over 15 seconds, and striking the target while affected by the dot will deal extra nature damage. This weapon is very powerful single target, but may lose value though in AoE as it has less main stats and secondary stats. The second weapon we're going to be wanting is a dagger from the new dungeon, Dawn of the Infinites. It's not shown here, but the weapon does have a stat called Time Strike, which basically is on hit damage, making this weapon another great choice for us, as it's just free damage. If you do acquire this, you're going to be wanting to put this in your offhand though, as we need a heavy weapon in our first slot, which is things like swords, maces, fist weapons, etc. Next up is Enchants. Now this may vary for each character, as everyone has different stats and needs, so I would highly advise you to sim your character to find out your personal best choices. If you want to get a general idea of what to look for though, you're going to be wanting Sophic Devotion on both your weapons. For rings, you're going to want to be putting Devotion of Versatility. Chest is going to be Waking Stats, and for legs we're going to be wanting a Fierce Armor Kit. For gems, put 1 Resplendent Illimited Diamond. It's unique though, so you're only going to be able to put 1. Then you're going to fill the rest with gems like Radiant Malgite and Radiant Alexstrasite. In terms of consumables, you're going to be wanting Buzzing Runes or Howling Runes, depending on your stats. File choice is going to be Ice File of Corrupting Rage. Potion will be Elemental Potion of Ultimate Power. And for our food, we'll be using Devious Deviled Eggs. So let's take a look at embellishments. For our 2 slots, we're going to be wanting Toxic Thorn Foot Wraps. This gives our spells a chance to launch a magical thorn at a target, dealing damage. It says have a slight drawback, which is going to reduce some of our stamina. Second, you're going to be wanting to look for an off-piece that you can put Toxified Armor Patch on, which will double down on the effect of your Toxic Thorn Foot Wraps. Now we're going to be going over the stat priority. As I've said before, the best way to understand what your character needs will be simming yourself, but I'm just going to give you a general idea of what to look for. So it will be versatility to crit, to haste, to mastery. Versatility is going to give us a flat damage whilst also reducing our damage taken. Crit is obviously going to allow us to crit more, but it plays well into talents like Improved Between the Eyes. Haste is going to make the flow of our rotation feel better, and will also play into talents like Swift Slasher. And last we have Mastery, which is generally bad, it doesn't do a lot of damage and you're going to want to avoid it as much as possible. Next we're going to have a quick look at our new tier. Our 2-piece will grant our Sinister Striker an additional 10% of striking and additional time. Fairly simple, not much to say about this one. Our 4-piece is Roll the Bones, additionally refreshes a random Roll the Bones buff that we currently possess. An example of the set bonus would be if we have one buff up and we roll the bones, the 4 set will pick one of our current buffs we have, and obviously at the time we only have one, and then it will increase its duration whilst also granting us a second buff. You can also use this to gain free buffs fairly often, which I'll go over in a second in the rotations. So now we're going to be going over the rotations, but before that I'm going to be going over why I said before we're going to be wanting to look at certain roll the bone buffs like True Bearing, Ruthless Precision, and Grand Melee. True Bearing is going to work with Restless Blades, making our finishing moves reduce the cooldowns of our abilities by an additional 0.5 seconds per combo point spent. This means we'll be able to gain more subterfuge windows with Vanish and higher up times of Adrenaline Rush. Ruthless Precision is going to be increasing the crit chance of our Between the Eyes by 60% and the rest of our abilities by 15%. Now a large portion of our damage will be Between the Eyes, making this buff very strong. Lastly, I want to go over Grand Melee. Now it's only a 5% damage, which isn't all that great on its own, but for AoE will also grant Blade Throw an additional 10% damage to nearby enemies, so this will be more of something you'll be wanting to look for in AoE. So let's go over the Hidden Opportunity build first. If you want to see what I'm pressing, you can look above my details at the bottom right and it will show you what will be happening. So first we're going to be using Blade Flurry pre-pull. This is for the part of the talent Underhanded Upper Hand. Then we'll use Roll the Bones, Adrenaline Rush, Slice and Dice, and then Stealth. As I said before, this is all just before the pull. Then you're going to want to open with Ghostly Strike into an ambush, and we'll be going into our first subterfuge window. Use as many Between the Eyes as possible during this time, and make sure they're above 5 combo points when you're spending. You'll be wanting to gain combo points using ambush. After our subterfuge drops, make sure to get back up to higher combo points, this will be like 5+. Then we'll be using Roll the Bones again to gain our second buff, and also extending them. This as well, we'll be pressing Vanish and start our second subterfuge window. Once this one drops, you'll be using Shadow Dance and do the same thing where we spam as many Between the Eyes as possible and press Ambush to get combo points. Make sure to use Ghostly Strike as much as possible when it comes off cooldown, and Blade Rush if you feel like your energy is dipping low. Once it's all over, you'll be out of your Shadow Dance, and depending on your Vanish cooldown, you can press Between the Eyes one more time. If it's below 45 seconds, however, don't do it. Now you're just going to be building with Sinister Strikes, Pistol Shot procs, and Ambush procs. And you'll be spending with Dispatches until your next Vanish window. Once your Vanish comes off cooldown, make sure you have Between the Eyes ready, and again 5+ combo points. And then you'll be vanishing and going into your subterfuge window, spamming Between the Eyes again. Use your Adrenaline Rush when your first one drops off, and use Roll the Bones when your buffs are going to drop off also. Rinse and repeat. A nice thing I tend to try to do is Vanish first, and then follow it up with a Shadow Dance, as it smooths out the gameplay and will keep you spamming Between the Eyes more often. Finally, let's look at the Keep It Rolling build. This is going to play fairly similar to the Hidden Opportunity build, however we no longer use Ambush and instead Sinister Strike. During the Subterfuge and Shadow Dance windows, you're going to be using Sinister Strike and Pistol Shot procs in order to gain more combo points, whilst also we'll be using the buffs from Echoing Reprimand to help us out with the general slower combo point generation from this build. So again, before the pull, we'll be doing Blade Flurry into Roll the Bones, Adrenaline Rush, Slice and Dice, and then Stealth. Open up with Echoing Reprimand into a Ghostly Strike. We'll add to use one of the buffs from Echoing Reprimand here, and we'll try to spend the rest of the buffs on Dispatches and Between the Eyes. The difference in this build compared to the Hidden Opportunity build comes after the second Roll the Bones, where we'll be fishing for procs using Count the Odds to then gain as many buffs as possible, and then press Keep It Rolling to extend our buffs. The rest after this will play the same as the Hidden Opportunity build, trying to be in a subterfuge as much as possible, spamming Between the Eyes. Well, that's everything. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, leave a comment, like the video, and consider subscribing for future content. See you guys later. Peace.